Hey there, coaches. I'm Rich Prado, owner of Play In School and host of Travel Ball Talk, where I talk to travel ball coaches from the best organizations about the current and future state of travel baseball. Today's episode takes me right up I-95 to Washington, D.C. to talk with Andy Bradley, owner of Bradley Baseball Academia. It's a great conversation that goes into how Bradley stumbled into and has embraced a niche within his organization. The name Academia might be a good hint as to what that niche is. I hope you enjoy this episode of Travel Ball Talk. But before we get to today's show, coaches, what if there was a drop-dead simple platform that put all of your players' up-to-date data and videos at your fingertips? What if that platform cost your family less than a trip to Starbucks each month? Good news. I've just built it. Our player profile platform might be the cleanest and simplest way to have your players maintain their data and film in one place. For full details and to set up a demo, visit playinschool.com/platform.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Travel Ball Talk. I'm your host, owner of Play In School. And today we're riding up I-95 to the Northern Virginia, D.C. metro area to have a conversation with Andy Bradley from Bradley Baseball. Andy, how you doing, man?
Doing well, Rich. Thanks for having me.
You got it. This should be a fun call. I think this is going to go into some directions I've kind of wanted to go with this podcast, and could be very informative for some folks out there. In my knowledge, there's not a lot of folks who are locking in on what we're going to talk about in just a few minutes. So it's going to be a cool chance to learn. Before we do that, I want to hand the mic over to you. You know, tell our couple listeners, about yourself. Go back, as far as you want. You don't have to go back to T-ball, but you can go back and give whatever pertinent info about yourself, and then introduce us to Bradley Baseball. So take it. You got it.
Yeah, and I did bat in the 8 or 9 hole of my T-ball team. I just wanted to mention that. But I will. Yeah, I mean, I was born in Jacksonville, Florida, and when I was 8, my father, who coached college baseball at Jacksonville University, got the job at the University of Maryland. So we moved up here and lived in University Park, Maryland, went to Gonzaga College High School right in the district. And then following that, I played at West Virginia University for a year and a half, and then played at a couple junior colleges. And following that, after a couple of surgeries, decided to hang up the spikes and kind of get out into the real world. So, following playing college ball, my ex head coach at Gonzaga, who you're probably aware of, Joe Shurek, who's a legend in the area, one of the best high school coaches, in my opinion, of all time in this area, and one of the best in the country. Joe walked into the place I was working at, and we just ran into each other, and he asked if I wanted to help out with the infielders at Gonzaga on the varsity team back in 2005, and ultimately I decided to do that. And 4 years later, he resigned, and I was able to take the baton from him and coach at Gonzaga. And about a year or two in my head coaching spurt, I started BBA, and that was back in 2010. We started with 2 fall teams in the 13-14U division, and I think we won maybe 2 or 3 games that year. But I started to see a path for what I wanted to do with BBA and what I wanted to do with baseball in the area outside of just my duties of coaching the Gonzaga varsity team. And over the last, 10 and a half years, we've grown into 5 divisions right now. We have our travel teams division, which goes from 13 all the way up to our college age team. We do bus tours and scout days where, we take kids up the Northeast and also throughout Virginia on campus tours, and we do showcases and scout days at various universities and colleges in front of college coaches. Our 3rd division is our outdoor camps. We run spring, summer, fall camps outdoors in the McLean, Fort Hunt, Reston area. And our next division is our Little League Development Coordinating, where we do a lot of coaches clinics, players clinics for the Little League ages, and we work with various Little Leagues in the area like Capitol Hill, McLean, Fort Hunt, a few others. And our last one, which is fairly recent because we just opened it in early January, is our indoor facility out in Reston, Virginia. I'm very fortunate to be out there. It's a brand new, state-of-the-art spot. We have about 8,000 square feet inside. We have our conference room and offices, a big storage area, which we're looking to convert to a classroom seminar setting. And we also have a fitness center, weight room for the guys to use. And, at our indoor facility, it's been pretty much full throttle from January to March. And, the last couple months, everybody's excited to get back outside. So we're a little bit lighter, but it's definitely, that 3 months we had in the winter gave us a lot of great ideas to do next year and what we need to improve on. And it's just great that when it rains now, we have a space to go inside for our players. Like I said, with the expansion that we've been able to have over the last 10 plus years, we're now at 3 full-time staff members, and then myself. We have 4 summer interns and contracted employees that are working in our front office over the summer months. And with our travel teams, we have about close to 25 coaches that that work with our players at all of those levels, from 13 all the way up to our college age team.
I tell you what, man, that was a really clean description of what you do. There's a couple. I want to dig into a couple things, but I love how you've diversified your portfolio. You've diversified your offerings, because if we've learned anything in the last 12 to 18 months, is that sometimes things can't be done. And so being able to have a way to help people, and a way to help people in a way that they will pay for that help, can be a really important thing. And so you've cleanly identified, I think you said it's basically 5 pieces of the pie. And for somebody who's maybe thinking about getting into this, think back to last year when all the games just come to a stop. Are you going to be able to pay the mortgage next month when that dries up? So I love it, man. I think that's really well thought out, and a way for y'all to help ball players in a bunch of different ways. So cool stuff. I'm glad you were able to articulate it so cleanly. We got to go back to the very beginning, though. Your dad was a Division I college baseball coach. I had no idea. Can you tell us a little bit about him and a little bit about growing up in a house where your dad going to work meant he was putting on stirrups and cleats?
Yeah, some of my fondest memories are with my dad are on the baseball field. From the age of 3-4 years old, I was the son in the dugout with the helmet on at JU. And when he was at JU, they were the team that was going to the regionals, and they were beating Georgia, back in 1990, 2 out of 4 times when Georgia won the national championship, and they were beating Florida State and Florida. So I was at a very young age, I didn't know the level of baseball that he was coaching at. But when I was 8, we moved up to Maryland, and it was definitely just a different environment because JU is a small private school, and Maryland's in the ACC, and you're seeing Clemson and Florida State and Georgia Tech. Some of the players that I had the opportunity to watch as a kid, like J.D. Drew and Omar Garcia-Parra and Jason Varitek, and these guys were just, I didn't take it for granted because I didn't know that they were going to become what they became, but I knew that these guys were were legitimate dudes, and and seeing. Just seeing my dad have to game plan against guys like that, that was exciting. And for me, as I started to get older, I'd go from kids sitting in the dugout to the bat boy to taking on-field batting practice with the with the team and taking ground balls. And I soaked it all in. It wasn't one of those things where I look back a couple years later or now, as I'm approaching 40 years old and say, God, I wish I would have, really not taken that for granted. I mean, I cherish those moments, and having that access was something that was special to me. And, it's one of the most special, times in my life, especially that I, was able to spend with my father.
No doubt. Did he retire from coaching as a Terp, or did he go on? Did he have positions beyond University of Maryland?
So he went on to coach. He coached 10 years in pro ball, mostly in short A and low A, and I think he got up to high A one year with the Blue Jays and Padres organization.
All right. So, last question on your father. With that experience between ACC and basically the top of college baseball versus low A, what do you think which one do you think he preferred?
Well, I think he was at a different time in his life, because when he left the University of Maryland, I was entering my freshman year of college.
Yeah.
So my older sister and I were out of the house.
All right. So he was an empty nester at that point.
Yeah, and I think that it was tough on him because coaching pro ball, you're gone for 6-7 months, from spring training all the way through the end of the season. So my mom would have she'd go and visit him from time to time, but I think that those 10 years, it was more of okay, we've got 5 or 6 months together, but then the 6-7 months apart. But my mom, I mean, she's because one thing I didn't mention, they actually met when he was pitching with the White Sox. So she kind of lived that lifestyle.
She knew the deal.
In the 70s when he was pitching, and then they got it's funny because they had a nice pretty not normal lifestyle, because the wife of a baseball coach, as I'm sure is not your wife can attest to this, it's not easy, but she kind of knew what she signed up for, and then when they went back to it, I think that she was more prepared for it when he got into coaching pro ball. This
is a kind of a topic or idea that's been a little bit on my mind, because in the last, I don't know, I'm going to make up a number, say maybe the last 5 years, it feels like there's been a lot of college coaches jump into the pro ranks. And listen, I'm in neither of those positions. It's just I'm an outsider, and in a way I go, man, some of these, I mean, even at the mid-major level, it's like the way things are set up now, it's kind of nice and cushy, and you got the $5 or $10 million ballpark, and you got this cushy office with leather chairs, and and you got a pretty consistent situation going on, and a pretty nice paycheck in some circumstances, and to leave that for a pro job and low A, I'm like, I don't know. I'm not. I think I'd stick with college, but that's just me personally. So I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, you see, I think the game's gotten more technical in a lot of, especially, the coaching's gotten better every year that baseball's been around, just because we have more information, more access. I look at the guys I played for back in the day, and they were great, but from a technical standpoint,
oh, definitely,
I think the coaches today, they're just more advanced, and that's why you're seeing certain guys go from college into the pros, and it doesn't really have to do with necessarily, did you play big league ball? Can you get a pro job now? It's like, that's not a prerequisite,
right?
And you see that, like you mentioned, with a lot of the college guys that are moving up.
What I'm really my point is, like, the idea of living in college town around college kids in a nice environment with a nice, like, a pretty steady paycheck is pretty appealing to me. And for me personally, would be, I guess everybody wants to make it to Yankee Stadium, but they only have a handful of coaches up there, right? So if I'm at this pretty nice situation, it would be tough choice for me to leave that behind, to go to middle of nowhere, small town, with possibly have facilities that are not even comparable to what you just left, even though it's professional baseball. So anyway, I'll put a pin in that for now.
I was going to say, not to belabor this, I'll just make a final point.
Yeah.
There's always going to be positives and negatives. I think that the college guys are moving to the pros. They realize that they're really just doing baseball. They're not dealing with
100%.
players eligible,
100%.
Recruiting, NCAA, and all
Yes.
that. So I think that might also play a role. But agree, man. It's a great topic, though, that we can always talk about more.
Yeah. So so speaking of great topics, this is what I really wanted to have you on today. Is from the outside looking in, just knowing a little bit about Bradley baseball, is it feels like you have either intentionally or unintentionally zeroed in on a niche, on a type of guy that you want to have around in your program. And what we're talking about is you've got the reputation of being a high academic organization. So the first question is that a fair statement? Are you a high academic organization, or did I just make that up? And if you are, did you do this intentionally, or did it just kind of happen over time by coincidence?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I mean, for me to say back in 2010 that this was the 10-year plan, I would be lying to you. When I started BBA, it was we just want to create travel teams at the middle school level to prepare these guys for high school, because I was coaching high school, and what I had noticed in my first couple of years as an assistant and then as a head coach was that these players and these parents, it's not really a seamless transition from when they go from 8th grade to 9th grade. So it started off as, okay, well, let's have better transparency. Let's really give them, an introduction of what it's like to play for a high school baseball coach in the area. And that comes down to not just how we, are going to, go with player development, but also with parent-coach relationship, player-coach relationship. The playing time questions need to come from the player, not the parent, and so forth. So that's how it started off. And then I think over time, coaching at Gonzaga, it's a high academic school. I mean, it's a very high-end school as far as the kids being motivated in the classroom as well as on the diamond. That motivation kind of transfers. So I always had hard-working kids. We kind of had that blue-collar mentality on the baseball field and in the classroom is the way I would put it. And so over time, what I started to realize, we started taking down our team GPAs each year and recording it, each player's, and we wanted to reward that. And I started looking at our GPAs and like, wow, we got like team 3.5 GPA, team 3.6 GPA. We got some smart kids. When I'm picking up the phone to call a college coach, I need to, start thinking about the right target schools for my players, not just athletically, but also academically, and what it's going to be, and where I'm going to advocate for. And I also need to advise the families. Like if a kid comes in, with a 2.8 GPA and he wants to go to Harvard, like it's tough for me to pick up the phone to call Bill Becker. So that's sort of like what that started to just happen, where it's like, okay, we got some really smart kids and they're really highly motivated, and to go to these higher academic schools. So let's start doing that. But at the same time, it wasn't like we would, if a kid was a better fit for a school that doesn't fall under that, that title of high academic, we're not just going to like say, no, we don't have anything for you. We can't help you.
Yeah.
We want to help that kid. But I think what you're asking is like, now as we, about a little over 2 years ago, I changed the name from Bradley Baseball Academy to Bradley Baseball Academia because of a lot of the reasons I just mentioned, the direction that was just kind of happening organically with our, target base. And so, what we started to realize was like, well, let's, particularly with our, upperclassmen during the summer and fall seasons, we shouldn't be sending them to just any tournament because, it's a big name or it's a great, it's great competition. Like those are important. Like, and we want to send our guys to tournaments that have the best competition, but we also want to have a better sense of what, we want to have some really guaranteed intimate exposure for our players at the schools that they're interested in, so we can match them up. And and that's some of the stuff that we do with our with our summer schedules. We do some of the big events. We go to World with Bat. We go to Super 17. We do bigger events like that. Don't get me wrong, but I think where we spend more of our time is, on our Northeast bus tour, when we go and do, our showcases in Baltimore, Philadelphia, and Boston, it's on one field. And, we have 40-plus college coaches spread out amongst those 3 workouts. So the players are guaranteed, that exposure. And I think that that's something that I just want to, I can't guarantee, and I tell my parents this, I'm like, I can't guarantee your son's ever going to play college baseball at the dream school that he has. But what I can tell you is he's going to get an opportunity to play in front of those coaches, okay? And if I don't feel like those coaches are going to be at, events that we're at this summer or this fall, probably not best to play for us.
This is the first thing that comes to mind is the phrase, the riches are in the niches. And what that means is you've niched down and have such a focus. Again, I get that you're going to let a kid who's not a 4.0 and 1400 into the program. I get that. But when there is a high percentage of similar kids, what that allows you to do is zero in on your target marketing. And I think this is an important takeaway for anybody that's listening. You don't have to be high academic to zero in, to be able to have focus. If you can create a team that has something, whatever it is, in common, that now all of a sudden when you put your kids in front of coaches, you're going to attract a bunch of those right coaches versus, you've seen them, you got kids from all over the map, and one coach comes to see one kid. Well, that's good for that one kid, but the other 19 kids, they're not getting looked at by that coach that day. And so to be able to have this kind of like a menu when you go out on the road and one coach can look at all 20 guys, that's awesome. That is awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the other thing to look at is this. I know with everything that happened with COVID and next year's eligibility, the transfer portal's at an all-time high, but the transfer portal's always been high. And what concerns me is that you have college coaches that go out to a showcase, and this could be a Power 5 school, a mid-major, whatever, and they go out and see a player, and from an ability standpoint, they're like, yeah, we want this guy, but so do the other 10 Power 5s that were there. So if they extend an offer to this kid and deadline him, say, listen, we got to know now, they're doing that so they can get him. And then that kid who might be a freshman, sophomore in high school, who's never even stepped foot on a college campus, he has to make the most important decision of his life up until that point of where he's going to go to, and he's going strictly off of where he's at from a athletic, projectable standpoint. Hopefully the college coach has a chance to talk to the high school coach, the travel coach, to get a little bit of background on character, grades, work ethic, teammate, all that. But that's a tight time crunch. So where I'm at is like, well, I wonder why these kids are transferring, is because you've got these kids going to a college where the only reason they're going there is because this coach gave them some love. It's a really good baseball program. Yeah. And it seems to be a pretty good school, but is it the right fit for them? It could be a great school. It could be, Duke University, one of the best all-around schools there is when it comes to baseball, academics, and everything else. But that might not be what he maybe the player's not looking to spend 4 years in Durham. The
reality is an NC State kid is not a Duke kid, and a Duke kid is not a Clemson kid, right? Like there's no one kid's better than it's just that the kid you think about at Duke is not the kid you think about at NC State. It's not the kid you think about at Clemson. They're different things, and being able to zero in on what you're looking for is probably the most important piece of this puzzle. If there's a family out there listening, zero in, figure out what you like and don't like, and be able to stick to your guns and make the best decision. The best decision. Listen, I want to be respectful of your time here, and in this new shorter format, I want to ask you a couple of these questions. I sent them to you ahead of time, and see if you can't bring some more good answers to us listeners here. So let's jump into this if you're game. Not rapid fire. We're in no hurry, but let's see. First question out of the gate. This is a softball to get you warmed up if you're not already stretched and warmed up. What book should every coach read?
I'm going to go with two on this one. So I remember reading Ron Polk's Playbook, which probably most coaches have read. So that's kind of an easy answer. That's from like the late '70s, but it was always in my dad's bookshelf.
Of course.
So that's a good one just from a technical, drills, practice planning standpoint. But I think sometime the other book I'm thinking of is called Calico Joe, and it's a book by John Grisham, and it's like a loosely based, it's pretty much a fictional with some nonfiction references, historical references in there, but it's a father-son relationship, and there's sort of a romantic element to it. So not to kind of get into that, but the reason I mentioned that book is it's an easy read, and it kind of reminds us that sometimes we get lost in the shuffle of just focusing so much on all the X's and O's, and we forget about that this is a really great, fun game that we play and that we coach. So those would be the two I would recommend.
No doubt. I'm not going to do this every time, but you mentioned a John Grisham book with a little bit of a sports theme to it. I'll add one in his library of books called Playing for Pizza. It's a football-based book where a guy goes overseas, and it's like a ragtag story of just a bunch of town old folks who get together to play sports. So this guy thought he was going to play in like some big time pro league, and he ends up playing with like the bartender is his teammate, and the postal worker is his teammate. Kind of funny. So anyway, John.
I'll check that out.
John Grisham bringing the heat today. That one. So Calico Joe, and obviously the Ron Polk. Good one. Everybody's got the Ron Polk. All right, next question. What regret or failure changed the way you coach for the better? A regret or a failure?
I mean, I was thinking about that, and I mean, obviously, I still think about, should I have bunted with that guy in the seventh, 10 years ago? I mean, we all still have those moments, but I think early on, Joe Shirk, who I mentioned earlier, my former head coach, he told me, it's that old phrase, however you phrase it, it's not just about the X's and O's, it's more about the Tonys and Joes. And I understood what that phrase meant, but I didn't really, understand and know what that was like until I actually had those experiences of coaching. Because the first couple of years that I was the assistant coach, and the first couple of years as the head coach at Gonzaga, I was so about practice plans and game plan, and all the other stuff was secondary. I didn't care about, if there was any issues with, the parents or playing time or making sure that the scoreboard and the snack bar was working. I just didn't think about all that stuff. And as I started to, get older and coach longer, I started to realize that that's what makes a true high school baseball program. And you need all that. It's not just you going out there with a bag of balls and a fungo hitting ground balls and working on player development and team development. It was, the team dinners, the team skit that we would do down on our, spring break trip, and outings at the movie theater, all those things are so important to, cultivate in that, that environment that you want, and realizing I need the help from the parents and the faculty and administration. So I think I started to realize that, as we were going, as I was going throughout. So that's probably my biggest regret, is I wish I would have done that a little bit earlier on in my career to set the tone better.
Good. All right. So you mentioned practice, and that's actually what the next question is about. With Bradley baseball in mind, how much, if any, midweek practice are you guys doing? We're probably talking summertime here. And is it team practice or individual workouts?
All right, so I'll break it up this way. Our middle school teams, so 13, 14U, we have a pretty set schedule of Monday night we do speed and skills trainings. So they work on speed training, hitting, and defense, 3 stations for 90 minutes. Wednesdays we do what's called individual pitching and hitting workouts. So the players will come in for an hour, and they'll get one-on-one time on pitching and hitting, and then we have some conditioning and some defensive partner drills that they do. But it's a full hour.
Mm-hmm.
And then Friday nights will be our team practice. So that's what we're doing during the week as far as practices, and player development is concerned. But then we also have a Tuesday night game, and then we have a Saturday doubleheader unless we're playing in some weekend tournament. So to answer your question, with the younger teams, we're going about, 3 some forms of practice. With the 15 to 18U levels, we'll have, I'd say with the 15, 16s, we're going to have 1 speed and skills training a week and 1 team practice. With the showcase team, in the summer, we're on the road. I'd like to say we're going to have a team practice every week, but we get into the dog days of July. It's it's going to be tough when we're traveling, 15, 16 days that month to really do that.
Mm-hmm.
But we like to have 1 to 2 sort of team practice or skills and speed trainings each week.
Cool. What's the number one piece of advice you'd give someone that's just starting a travel organization and or opening a facility? And you have experience with both now. So the number one piece of advice you'd give somebody starting either or both?
I think, come up with a mission statement. Figure out what you want your niche to be, okay? What I try to avoid is just saying, well, we're just a travel program, try out for our team, and then we'll see you next summer and play for 2 months. So come up with a mission statement, whatever that is, okay? Whatever you really want the identity of your organization or company to be, and then manage those expectations and don't overpromise and underdeliver. Mm-hmm. Just whatever it is, if you got a parent coming in and saying, I want, A, B, C, D, and E, and you can't do that, don't tell them that they can't, that you can. Because then I think that we have to take what we're doing seriously, especially with these kids as they're approaching, as I mentioned earlier, the most important decision of their life up until they choose a spouse. Yeah. And we got to take that seriously and advise accordingly. So I think managing expectations and also just, making sure we're not over-promising and under-delivering.
Manage expectations is a tremendous, tremendous answer. All right, here's one for you. I'm going to give you a magic wand here. What one change could be made to the travel ball world that would have the biggest positive impact?
This is a tough one. I mean, I think, first of all, that you hear the word travel, anything, travel baseball, travel soccer, it can be a polarizing phrase. Some people hear that and, take it how, in many different directions. I will say this, though. The league that we play in our area, NBTBL, I've seen other leagues around the country. I think that we have the most organized, the most transparent, and just one of the best travel organizations that I've seen, okay? Is it perfect? No, because the amount that you have to deal with in travel baseball is, you're dealing with field allocations and, making sure that coaches know how to do field care and sorry, Rich, I had a call come in.
Oh, I was wondering where you went. That's all right.
My phone, sorry, cut off for a second. But there's just a lot that that they have to deal with on that front. But so that's from a local travel perspective. I think the other element is the tournaments, out of town events, showcases, all that, and you're just dealing with a lot of different entities and strong personalities and people coming from different regions and backgrounds and. And what their goals are. It really, listen, travel ball for the most part is the wild, wild west around our country.
For sure.
It's very different. And I think that, it'd be easy for me to say, well, we need to govern it more tightly, but I don't know if that's realistic. And I don't even know if that's the solution, quite honestly. Yeah. I think that all we can do is, I approach my travel program the way I approached the game as a player and as a coach. When I stepped on the lines, I was looking to dominate that day. I wanted to beat the guy in front of me, okay? And that's what competition is. That's what everybody's approach should be, no matter who you're playing. But when I stepped off the field, or the last hour was recorded, I shook the hand, congratulated the other team, and I was able to compartmentalize, those different moments. And I think that sometimes that gets lost. You have guys that just can't do that. I'm as emotionally, I have losses stay with me for years. I still think about losses from years ago and mistakes I made, but I think that there's a way to still have respect, a mutual respect, not just for the opponent, but for the game. And by doing that, I think that will help our travel industry. But, it's just, I think there's a lot of different people that don't believe that once they step off the diamond.
You mentioned NVTBL. Let's give a shout out to Rob Haney, who runs that league up in Northern Virginia. And he's actually putting together what's called the ATBA. That's the American Travel Baseball Alliance, and you can find both those on Twitter. And he's looking for teams and partners across the country to grow this idea and kind of replicate the NVTBL in different regions. And so you heard a pretty good testimonial from a member of a team that's in the NVTBL. So definitely check those guys out. Good stuff, man. Good stuff. We won't keep you too much longer. Listen, do you have any parting words, anything that we should have touched on that we didn't touch on that that you'd like to share with with the couple listeners we still have left here?
No, I can't think of any. I think it's great what you're doing. Just trying to spread the gospel of baseball. Yeah. And I know you've had about 80 other guests on here. All of whom I'm sure did a fantastic job just talking about their organizations, about the game of baseball. So anything that we can do to help spread the word, we're all for as baseball coaches. And I'm honored just to have you on, or for you to have me on this broadcast. So thanks for doing this.
You got it, man. I appreciate it. Hang on one second. I'm gonna stop the recording, but don't hang up yet.
Okay.